Welcome to Mind Haven, where the fire burns softly, the rain falls gently, and every story has the power to change the way we see ourselves. Take a slow breath, allow your shoulders to relax. Leave the weight of today outside this room. For the next few minutes, there is nothing you need to fix, nothing you need to chase, only a quiet story, and perhaps a new way of understanding yourself. Tonight's story is inspired by one of the most influential books ever written about human behavior, The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. It reveals a simple but profound truth. Much of what we call personality is actually habit. The routines we repeat every day quietly shape our thoughts, our choices, and ultimately, our future. So, settle in and let's begin. Have you ever reached the end of a day and wondered where all your time went? You woke up. Perhaps you reached for your phone before your feet touched the floor. You brushed your teeth, made your coffee, took the same road to work, sat in the same chair, checked the same notifications, responded to familiar faces in familiar ways. And before you realized it, the day was almost over. It felt as though you had been making hundreds of decisions. But what if most of those decisions were never really decisions at all? What if an invisible force had quietly guided them? Long before you became aware of them? Every day, your brain is working to make life easier. It looks for patterns. It remembers what you've done before, and little by little, it transforms repeated actions into habits. Not because it wants to control you, but because it wants to save energy. Imagine walking through a forest for the very first time. There is no path. Every step requires effort. Every branch must be moved aside. Every direction demands a choice. Now imagine walking that same route every day, for years. Eventually, a clear trail appears. The ground becomes smooth. The journey becomes effortless. Without even thinking, your feet know exactly where to go. Your mind works in much the same way. Every repeated action leaves a mark. Every repeated thought carves a deeper path. Every repeated reaction becomes just a little more automatic, until one day, you are no longer consciously choosing the path. The path is choosing you. This is why change often feels so difficult. It isn't because you lack discipline. It isn't because you're weak. It's because your habits have been quietly practicing every single day for months, perhaps for years, and the more they are repeated, the stronger they become. But here is the beautiful part. The same invisible force that has shaped your life until today can also reshape your future. Because once you understand how habits are formed, you no longer have to live on autopilot. You can begin creating habits that work for you, instead of against you. In today's story, we'll explore the hidden system that quietly directs much of our lives. We'll discover why habits are far more powerful than motivation, why changing them feels so difficult, and how a single small change can quietly transform the person you become. Let's begin that journey together. Imagine for a moment that your brain is the most efficient machine ever created. Every second, it receives millions of pieces of information. The sound of the rain, the feeling of your clothes against your skin, the light around you, the memories in your mind. If your brain had to consciously process every tiny detail, you would be exhausted before breakfast. So it does something remarkable. It creates shortcuts. It turns repeated behaviors into automatic routines, not to limit your freedom, but to preserve your energy for something new. Charles Duhigg describes this as a simple cycle, one that quietly repeats itself throughout our lives. Every habit begins with a cue, something that tells your brain it's time. Perhaps it's your alarm clock, the smell of fresh coffee, the vibration of your phone, or the feeling of stress after a difficult conversation. Then comes the routine, the action you've repeated so many times that it almost happens by itself. You unlock your phone for another cup of coffee, reach for something sweet, or begin worrying about tomorrow without even realizing you've started. Finally comes the reward, a small feeling your brain enjoys: comfort, relief, pleasure, distraction, certainty. The reward whispers to your mind, remember this. And with every repetition, the loop grows stronger. Cue, routine, reward, again and again, until one day, you no longer notice the loop. You simply call it my personality. But think about this. Have you ever picked up your phone only because you heard a notification, and then 5 minutes became 20. 20 became an hour. Not because you wanted to waste your time, but because the loop quietly took over. Or perhaps, every time you feel anxious, you open the refrigerator, not because you're hungry, but because your brain remembers that eating once brought comfort. The habit was never about the food, just as scrolling was never about the phone. It was always about the reward. This is why willpower often loses. You're not fighting a single decision. You're interrupting a pattern your brain has practiced hundreds, sometimes thousands of times. And yet, there is something incredibly hopeful about this, because habits are learned. They are not destiny. No one is born checking their phone every few minutes. No one is born avoiding difficult conversations. No one is born believing they can't change. These patterns were built, one repetition at a time. And if they were built, they can also be rebuilt. The cue may remain, the reward may stay the same, but the routine, that quiet action between the two, can be changed. That simple idea has transformed countless lives, not overnight, not through extraordinary effort, but through one small choice, repeated often enough until it becomes the new path. And perhaps the future you've been searching for doesn't begin with a dramatic decision. Perhaps it begins with one tiny habit, repeated tomorrow morning. By now, you may be wondering, if habits are so powerful, can I really change them? The answer is yes, but perhaps not in the way most people imagine. Many of us try to change our lives by fighting our habits. We promise ourselves, starting tomorrow, I'll be different. Tomorrow arrives. We rely on motivation. We force ourselves to resist, and for a few days, it works. Until life becomes stressful, we grow tired, something unexpected happens, and almost without thinking, we return to the old pattern. Then we blame ourselves. We call it a lack of discipline, a lack of commitment. But what if the problem was never your determination? What if you were simply fighting against the way your brain naturally works? Charles Duhigg shares an important insight. The cue often remains. The reward often remains. What changes is the routine. Imagine someone who reaches for a cookie every afternoon. It may seem like the habit is about eating, but perhaps the real reward is taking a short break, or having a conversation with a colleague, or simply escaping a stressful moment. Once the real reward is understood, the routine can change. Instead of eating the cookie, they take a short walk, they make a cup of tea, they spend 5 quiet minutes outside. The cue is the same. The reward is the same, only the path has changed. This is how lasting habits are built, not by fighting yourself, but by gently guiding yourself in a new direction. Think of a river. For years, water flows through the same channel. The current grows stronger, the banks become deeper. Changing that river doesn't happen overnight. It begins with a small new stream. At first, only a trickle of water follows it. Then a little more. Day after day, the new path becomes wider, until eventually, the river changes course. Your mind works the same way. Every time you choose a healthier response, a calmer thought, a kinder word, or a more intentional action, you are carving a new path. At first, it feels unfamiliar, even uncomfortable, but that doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're building something that has never existed before. So be patient with yourself. Real change is rarely loud. It doesn't arrive with applause. It happens quietly. One morning, one choice, one repetition at a time, and then, almost without noticing, the person you hope to become begins to feel like the person you've always been. Perhaps by now, you'll see tomorrow a little differently, not as another ordinary day, but as another opportunity, because your future is rarely created by the biggest moments of your life. It's created by the smallest ones, the ones that almost no one notices. The glass of water instead of the sugary drink, the 5-minute walk instead of staying on the couch, the decision to put your phone away and truly listen to someone you love, the choice to speak with kindness, even when you're frustrated. These moments seem insignificant, but they are quietly casting votes. For the person you are becoming, every habit is a promise to your future self. Some promises build a stronger, calmer, healthier life. Others slowly take it away. And the remarkable thing is this: your brain doesn't know the difference between a good habit and a bad one. It simply strengthens whatever you repeat. So the question isn't, what kind of life do I want? The deeper question is, what am I repeating every single day? Because repetition becomes identity. The person who reads every evening eventually becomes a reader. The person who chooses patience again and again becomes patient. The person who practices gratitude begins to see beauty where others see only problems. Little by little, without fanfare, without dramatic transformation, a new life begins to emerge. Charles Duhigg reminds us that habits are not a life sentence. They are patterns, and patterns can be changed. Not all at once, not perfectly, but gently, patiently, one choice at a time. So tonight, before you fall asleep, ask yourself just one question. What is one small habit I can change tomorrow that my future self will thank me for? Don't try to change your entire life. Change one moment. Repeat it. Protect it. Let it grow. Because years from now, you may look back and realize that the life you always hoped for didn't begin with one extraordinary decision. It began with one invisible habit. Thank you for spending these moments with me. If this story gave you a new way of seeing yourself, then perhaps it was worth slowing down together. Until then, take care of your mind. Be kind to yourself. Keep learning, keep growing, and I'll see you here again at Mind Haven. Goodbye.